My brother and I were trapped far beneath the ground, in a parking structure with no way out. The darkness which surrounded us was thick and suffocating. The fact that the air was recycled down here far more than should be legally allowed was not helping. I felt like I was breathing in my own recently expired carbon dioxide at all times, with less and less oxygen molecules to go around with each breath. I realized I was hyperventilating again, and I tried to will myself to stop. The realization that our would-be rescuer was actually one of the creatures running this place had set my fight-or-flight system into overdrive, it seemed. My hand was reaching for the passenger side door handle without any conscious effort on my part. It'd be a lie to say that I was surprised to find that there was no latch, lock, or handle to open it with, only smooth plastic and steel all the way across. "I was wondering when you'd notice," Steve said, taking the next turn a little too quickly, speeding around the next corner, right down the ramp, deeper and deeper into the ground. The space inside the parking structure was getting tighter again. It had grown cavernous for a while, changing into abstract formations, and eventually looking like a natural cave system, full of huge caverns, but now it actually started to resemble a parking garage once more. Tight, close-packed, and claustrophobic. Lines which were not straight, but painted in that familiar, jaundiced yellow shade, began to designate spaces for cars to park, and they were all full, of course. "Notice what?" Noel said from the back seat. "There's no logo on the steering wheel," I said quietly, realizing it was pointless to pretend. My face had spoken volumes as my eyes had widened in fear, registering the fact that this car was not from our world. It was from down here. And so was Steve. Oh, shit. Steve pressed down hard on the gas pedal, spinning the wheels like a stunt driver as we went down another level. He was accelerating through the turns, not slowing down as one usually would. Flickering fluorescent lights overhead began to race by, faster and faster, reminding me of the water ride scene in Charlie the Chocolate Factory. Steve began to laugh maniacally as the lights illuminated his face in brief flashes. We sped past a never-ending parade of black cars, tightly packed together in long rows. They were sitting at warped angles and scraping against each other, as if they were life-sized Hot Wheels lined up haphazardly by an enormous, disgruntled toddler. The ceiling was getting lower and looked close to the roof of the car as we went down yet again, around the bend of another ramp's distorted parabola. The vehicle kept gaining speed, and I grabbed the dashboard for support, since there was nothing else to hang on to. "What the hell do you want from us? Why don't you just let us leave?" I asked, tensing up and slamming my foot down hard on the imaginary brake pedal on my side of the car. He didn't answer. He simply sat behind the steering wheel, grinning, laughing, and turning each tight corner quicker than the one before, looking unconcerned with the speed, and I felt I could vomit at any second. Noel looked at me and made the gesture as if to choke the guy from behind. I wondered if it would do any good. It was worth a shot, I guess, with no rational justification for the thought. Nodding at Noel, I waited for what would come next, ready to grab the steering wheel if necessary. At this rate, it seemed certain we would crash and he would kill us for sure if the car got any faster. "Let us out of here, you freak!" Noel shouted, putting his forearm against Steve's neck and gripping his other bicep with his hand. A perfect chokehold by the looks of it, except that Steve didn't seem bothered by it. It occurred to me immediately that, of course, that made sense. He's probably a demon or some sort of other dark creature born of this abyss. He seemed to not require any air, which... would an underground creature need air? But instead looked satisfied with having none. The man continued laughing soundlessly, then let go of the steering wheel with surprised speed. Just as we were coming around the final bend of another ramp, before I could even react, the car slammed with violent force into the black sedan parked on the next level down. The world exploded into a deafening bang. Glass and plastic fly everywhere, airbags that felt like they were full of lead deployed, slamming me hard in the face and knocking me unconscious. When I woke up, Steve was gone, and we were all alone once again. "What was the point of that?" I muttered. Noel had no answer for me. He shook his head, blood trickling down from his ear and from his scalp. Why had they abducted us just to let us go again? Seemed to be of no benefit to anyone. We just managed to travel a few dozen floors further down, but if that's where we were headed anyway, why would the creatures running this place try to help? Maybe because we were freezing to death? Had they actually been trying to save us? "I wonder if they want us to get to the bottom," I said out loud. To nobody in particular. Noel was trying to get the car started again, but the key in the ignition was just causing an annoying chiming sound. It wouldn't turn over no matter how many times he tried. The front end was smashed in and the engine was no longer functioning by the look of it. There was no way that we could keep driving it. We'd be lucky to walk away with only bruises and scrapes, a couple of black eyes, some indeterminate head trauma. My bones made disturbing and unnatural crunching sounds as we walked away from the wreckage. I tried to crack my neck, but that seemed to make things substantially worse. "You doing okay, man?" I asked Noel as we walked. "We know this isn't going to work. They're just drawing us in more and more. We're giving them exactly what they want." He seemed to think about it for a minute. "You know what? Maybe we're doing what they want. What the hell else can we do? There's no way back up. These damn steel doors are like bank vaults. There's no way to get through them all, unless maybe we have a damn bulldozer." It's true. "So what are we gonna do? Sit on our hands and freeze to death?" I sighed, realizing he was right. "At least it's starting to feel a little warmer down here, and that's something," he said. "Yeah, I guess that is something," I agreed. My fingers at least weren't numb anymore. It didn't feel like they could fall off at any second. "Did you notice the cars? They're back, and I hate to say it, but it looks a little bit more like an actual parking garage down here again. Like it looked at the top." "Yeah, sure. But we're still down here." Seemed his reassuring observations ended there. We continued on in silence for a long time, walking down each ramp and then slogging through each subsequent level to the next. There's no denying it. Chaos was returning to an ordered state. The place looked more or less like a regular parking structure once more, and I remembered how we had been lured inside, shuddering at the memory. Neither one of us said it, but we were both thinking it. What if things started getting weird again, like the first time? What if we just kept going down and cycling through levels, or ordered normality, then more madness, then back to the normal again, over and over and over? The thought made me feel a little squirrely in the old noggin again, so I just tucked that mental image neatly away in the brain folder that I had for such things, far, far at the back of the filing cabinet that was my memory bank. I didn't want to think about that now. I really didn't. We got to the bottom of the next ramp, and I walked straight into the steel sliding door. I'd been looking at my feet. Noel was a few yards back, staring at the door. At the top, written on a white sign in red letters, was the word, "Street Exit." Huh? I looked around for a button, a way to make the door go up, suddenly feeling like a diver about to surface, desperate for a hit of sweet, sweet air. There was a little intercom box besides the door. It said, "Push button for assistance" on it, and I wondered where it had been all my life. Specifically for the last day or more, we'd been trapped underground looking for a way out. I pushed the red button. Garbled voice came through the speaker. "Can I help you?" "Can you let us out, please?" I asked, waiting for the maniacal laughter to start right on cue. Our nerf gray," the voice said back, distorted and broken by static. "Have a nice day," it had said. I realized as the door rolled up on its tracks. The sun was shining outside, so bright it caused us to shield our eyes with our hands. It took a long moment for my eyes to adjust. I was afraid, waiting for the light to become tolerable to look at. We had never come back up from the bottom of the parking garage. There was no way we were back at the entrance somehow. This had to be another trick, and yet... My mind registered the sounds of cars driving past. People walking, talking, birds singing, bees buzzing as they flew through the air. Stopping at flowers to make their withdrawals and deposits of nectar. I blinked my eyes and I looked to see the world as I had always known it, all around us. We were at the surface. Startled and confused, I spun around expecting to see the ramp going up. Instead, it was leading back down into the darkness. What the... I trailed off, unsure of what to say. "How?" my brother began, seeming to have come to a similar realization, scratching his head and looking down the ramp. This parking garage was even stranger than it seemed, apparently. It defied all reason and logic and the laws of physics as well. Instead of going up as the ramp should have, it was now aimed straight back down, as if it had flipped upside down when we turned around. We stepped out into the sun. We looked up to see a skyscraper towering above us, the windows made of glass. Inside, people could be seen working at desks and drinking their morning coffee. It wasn't the home of a never-ending pit of despair, a chaotic abyss leading down into hell. It was just a regular old office building. I know we were walking down the whole time, so how are we back up here on street level? I don't know, man. I know we walked down that ramp, so it should be angled back up when we were looking at it, but it's not. Now it's going back down. He thought about it for a while before saying, maybe it's like that magnetic hill. What? What are you talking about? But then I remembered. He didn't need to explain it any further because I knew the one that he was talking about. There was a semi-famous tourist attraction where people could put their cars in neutral at the bottom of a hill, which appeared to go up, and could sit inside while the car was pulled up to the precipice by a magnetic force. Except really it was just an illusion. The hill looked like it was going up, but it was actually just a less steep downhill curve amidst a bunch of others that made it appear to be a hill going up. In reality, you were going down the whole time. What was that? What had happened to us? You just thought we were going to go down all along, when really, at a certain point, we had begun to ascend again. Maybe, I suppose, it could be. I mean, anything was possible, after all. But it seemed unlikely. I mean, looking back down the ramp, I shook my head. Not just unlikely, it was impossible. I had walked down that ramp to get to this door, not up. I was sure of it. And yet my eyes betrayed that memory. Oh, this is seriously freaking me out. Let's get away from this place, okay? I can't look at it anymore. Deal. The two of us started walking again, leaving the parking garage behind. I looked with disbelief at the street signs and the billboards all around us. At first glance, it was all normal. After satisfying ourselves with the fact that we were finally out of the dark hellhole beneath the ground, I flagged down a taxi. It would cost a fortune for them to take us back to Hamilton, but it'd be good to finally get home. It wasn't like we could use our own car, after all. It was stuck down in the bowels of the parking garage. I whistled loudly and raised my hand into the air. A yellow taxicab pulled up to the curb almost immediately. We climbed in, sat down, relaxed on the soft seats. "Where to, fellas?" the man asked in a strange, high-pitched voice that sounded like two small people speaking at once. He turned to face us in the back seat. My words caught in my throat as I was unable to get them out. The cabbie's eyes had dry, crusted red lips like mouths. Inside, instead of irises, were teeth and tongues. He was speaking through his eye holes, I realized. His mouth was one large, unblinking eyeball that opened and closed, observing us passively, then with a grave-looking frown. Then he began to scream. The sound of it was awful and ear-splitting. It took me a few long moments to figure out what I wanted to say, but by the time he finished screaming, I had decided on a plan. There was no other choice. It was the only way. Back down. Do you know any place where I can rent a bulldozer, my good man? It looked as if we weren't home free just yet. Good evening once again, kids. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I want to tell you thank you for watching tonight's video, or for listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. That's available on Spotify, or on Apple Music, or on any other places that you can get podcasts. I'm not entirely sure where people listen to podcasts at. If you guys are watching on YouTube, though, I would really appreciate if you click the subscribe button, click that thumbs up button, and hit the bell for me, because that's what we're supposed to say now. We're required by YouTube law. As always, I want to give a big thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon. You guys are the real MVPs, and you allow us to get a whole bunch of custom stories that are only heard here on this channel, on this podcast. So, a very big thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Stephanie Butler, Bobby Karman, Tristain Pelton, Chase Burnett, Diana Kraus, Maria Walker, Tonya Oran, paingravy, Inactive Hermit,
Austin Johnson, Crazy Kid, MrMarcusBlitz, Aika Limchoc, Dirt Diver 030, Matt Bach, Jabbles Raz, Voiceofsand, Coffee Zombie, Matthew McNeese, ChellyJay, Jeremy H, raltizal, PhycoMel, Nana, TheMorrigan, Nick Weaver, MeltedLake, Tali Sue, SkyMara Ravenswood, William King, Reaper 61167, Darth Miver, Micah Ortiz, Satanic Aries, Nessie, Parafa Panda, Bardo Hawk 764, Lambda M98, Harley, Billy Morrow, Sashi Suzaku, My Body Sounds Like Rice Krispies, Miss Xander, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Azarine Fox, Freddy Krueger, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Hades' Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Cryptic Nightmares, Carrie the Sloth, Tommy Green, Fester's Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, Trey Smiles, and Corey Kenshin. And of course, everybody who's down there in the description as well, and everybody who can support on patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta for even $1, I appreciate it greatly, and I'm sure that all the authors that we were able to work with appreciate it too. So, thank you guys so much, thank you for listening, and sweet dreams.